What's one comeback you've used in life that was so smooth that you still grin when you think back on it? I was a witness to a murder in which I was one of the people that they tried to kill. Years later after it happened, I get a call I needed to testify as they had caught the assholes. After several minutes of questioning, they asked me what I was thinking after they shot at me. Thinking to myself, how you answer a blatantly obvious and ridiculous question. The only response I could come up with was shit. The entire court started laughing, including not only every juror, but the defense attorney and the judge. Even the stenographer was laughing so hard she stopped typing. I'm fairly certain I'll never get another zinger like that again. I'm getting ready to leave happy hour and see that my coat is still on the bar stool that I was at earlier, but now is being sat on by the CEO, and my bag was on the bar next to him. So I walk over and somewhat sheepishly, I was pretty low on the totem pole, say excuse me to get my coat, and when I go to grab my bag, he grabs it and says, winking at the CFO, "It's cool, we've already been through your bag, there's no money in there." Without even thinking I said, "Yeah, we are gonna have to have a talk about that." They burst out laughing, and after that, I was cool with the CIA. True story. Not mine but my sister's. She was about 4 and wanting to play kitchen in her room. She grabbed some cereal boxes from the kitchen and put them in her room. My mother, in trying to explain why it wasn't acceptable, said the cereal will bring ants. Do you want ants in your room? My sister, not missing a beat, replied, do you want ants in your kitchen? This story still gets brought up at family gatherings 20 plus years later. The cereal will bring ants. Do you want ants in your room? Is this your mother? In her webpage. I work in a supplement store. One night, as I was nearing the end of my shift and getting tired of talking to people, a young guy and his buddy walk in, and the guy decides he's going to be funny men and make jokes about all the products. I hate when people do this, because A, the jokes are never funny, and B, I've heard them all before. So after humoring a few somewhat obnoxious quips from him, the guy grabs a fat burner off the shelf and holds it up at me. Look at this one. Hey, miss, is this gonna make me look way better? To which I replied, without missing a beat, I really hope so. His buddy and the other guys in the store just started cracking up. I hadn't meant to sound so bitchy, it just sort of came out that way. I'm usually a sap, but I was sitting in a coffee shop with some friends, plus a few people I didn't know. The girls in the group started talking about the types of guys they are into. This girl I just met said, I don't know what it is, but I really love when guys are dicks to me. And before she could finish her next sentence, I say, holy shit, are you still talking? Everyone looked at me like in complete shock, but the girl gave me a grin of approval. So, whenever I see SAP written in caps like that, I immediately think it's an acronym for Short Asian People. It's a long story why, but it made your story a bit confusing on the first read-through. I always think second audio program from that button on remote controls that switches the language to Spanish. WordPress webpage. While working the seafood counter at a grocery store during the busy holiday rush, my boss was arguing with a drunk older lady who fucked up her own order but blamed everyone but herself. Boss tells me to give her whatever the hell she wants and get her the hell out of here. The old lady hears this, and screams for the entire crowd to hear, you don't fuck with a 64-year-old woman. To which I calmly, but loudly retorted, 64? What's your daughter have to do with this? Her scream of rage was barely louder than the collecting gasp and outright laughter and applause from the rest of the crowd. I was at a bar, at a table, with some friends. A group of women, looked to be in their early 50s, sitting at a nearby table, completely hammered, which normally wouldn't be an issue. Only these ladies were literally gutting younger women with insults as they'd pass by, trying to see how many they could make cry. After about an hour or so of this happening, these women start looking for men to take home. I know this because they were nice enough to announce it out loud to the entire bar. Every few minutes, one of the women, a blonde that happened to be the ringleader of this group, kept looking over at me, trying to capture my attention. Not being overly attracted to obnoxious, I ignore this woman, which only makes it worse, and only makes her more angry. So she gets up and walks over to our table, tells me that she's going to the bathroom and that I better be there when she returns, because I'm going home with her. To which I say, it's not happening. But she ignores me and makes her way to the bathroom. On her way back, she walks past me and loudly exclaims "Dick," so everyone at her table and my table can hear. To which I respond, "Oh mom, you know how you get after 2 drinks." She turned around, and I've rarely seen a woman so pissed off. She started screaming something I couldn't make out, which attracted the bouncer, who promptly kicked her out. Everyone clapped, and I drank the rest of the night for free. TLDR, called a cougar mother, she got bounced. They were literally tearing open the young women and removing their entrails. TLDR managed to come up with and use and normally only think it up in the shower later. Worthy witty retort during a 12-hour disagreement with a stranger on a plane. I was on a plane flight from LAX to New Zealand. I was sitting next to a Chinese woman who within the first 5 minutes of conversation started extolling the virtues of the Chinese capital punishment system, conviction, execution, family build for the bullet the same day. I told her I was against the death penalty, but that at least in most countries in the West the systems had multiple appeals to satisfy the principle of better to let 100 murderers go free than execute 1 innocent man. She told me that in China it was better to execute 100 innocent men and let 1 murderer go free. We still had the whole Pacific to go, so I said let's agree to disagree, and that should make for a more peaceful flight, and then sat in my seat and seethed about this for the next 12 hours. 3 movies, 2 meals and a long sleep later we are landing in Wellington, and the customs announcements prompt the Chinese lady to start telling our row this long story about how she was detained in Bangkok, suspected of being a drug mule, had her very private things in her suitcase spread out on a table. She was visibly upset at this story and looked to be tearing up as she started to describe them searching her person for drugs. The fasten seatbelt light went off. I said, better to have strip searched you and 99 other innocent passengers than let 1 drug smuggler get through. And then I got up, grabbed my bag and walked away, leaving her open-mouthed. To this day, when a comeback or witty retort occurs to me after the fact, I always remember this story and think, it's okay, I got her. Not sure if it counts, but a few years ago when I was a checker at Safeway, a man and his son come up to my line. They start unloading their cart and I quickly grab each item as they place it on the belt. It's a very large cart and we both start going faster until he asks if we're now racing. I tell him that if he wants to, I'm more than happy to win. He gives me a smile and both the dad and the kids start throwing things on the belt and I'm still keeping up. He looks at me and just says, "Your overconfidence will be your weakness." And without even a half-second delay I give my best decrepit voice and reply apparently quite loudly, "Your faith in your friends is yours." He just stops dead in his tracks and we both start cracking up along with most of the lines around us, as well as all my co-workers who heard it. I was proud of myself 4 weeks after that happened and I still don't think I've ever been that quick-witted since. Edit, grammar. I used to work at this pizza joint that would stay open late on the weekends to hit the bar crowd. The pizza was New York style, so 18 inches pie was standard and slices were as big as your face. A pair of guys came in and ordered a slice each of the meat lovers pizza, which came out to like $4.75 a slice. Now, I get it that one might find this pizza to be pricey, but the amount of toppings we put on it made up for that, so I thought. These guys began throwing a fit about it and we defended ourselves saying that we didn't set the prices, and we're sorry but that's how it is, we have to eat too. One of the guys looks at my coworker who is a big overweight and goes, "Well, you look like you're eating well," pays for the slice and sits down to eat it. 5 minutes later, I walk out with a slice for a different customer who asked to have his slice warmed in the oven, and as I turn around to go back behind the counter, those 2 guys are standing right in front of me and get all up in my face. The one guy from before goes, "We gotta leave our garbage on the table for yo ass to clean up, cause yo pizza is too expensive." I looked him right in the eyes and said, "You come rolling in here wearing your Dolce & Gabbana bullshit sunglasses, ready to pay $8 for a shot of pucker, and you're going to complain about $5 pizza? Get the fuck out of my restaurant. As I said that, the guy looks around the whole restaurant that is now staring at us, and starts doing the whole PSSSSHHHHHPFFFFTTTPSSSHHHHHHHHH bullshit, and I go, what the fuck is your problem? You got a fucking leak, asshole? Get the fuck out. And all of a sudden the whole restaurant erupted into a bunch of and people were clapping. It was amazing. The owner always told the guys running the bar shift that they could say and do whatever they needed to in order to get someone to leave that was being rude or disorderly. I took that privilege very seriously. Getting the standard "Hey, is the new guy" treatment at a fast food place. The guy training me, had games that revolved around groping the new guys, was watching me learn grills and commenting on my big hands. I'm 6'8", man, you have big hands. You can hardly hold those tongues. Must suck, right? I bet it's hard to jack off like that. You find it hard to masturbate with those big hands, Raffle Harris. I'm here just taking it and trying to concentrate on the work and half-heartedly mumble, "That's all in proportion, mate," and he is just gobsmacked. Fairly sure I earned his respect with that one comeback. That said, he was hardly a guy you needed the approval of. He later got booted for making out with an underage employee at the Christmas party. I was in middle school. This one guy, let's call him Ben, was bullying the fat kid in my grade in the locker room after our gym period, while everyone was changing. Let's call the chubby guy Chris. What was strange was this bully was smaller than Chris but still managed to push him around and make him feel like shit. At one point he cornered Chris and just kept acting like he was about to take a swing at him, just waiting for Chris to wince or flinch. I was really annoyed at how little of a fuck everyone was giving about this, so I went to the bully who was my size and just pushed him against the wall. He punched me on my arm and just said, "Fuck off, Hindu-guru, your mother is a cunt." Honestly, I don't know how I thought of this, but I almost immediately responded saying, "Tell your mom to stop changing her lipstick, my dick is turning rainbow." Cause we were in middle school, everyone just went up. Ben just shut his ass up and went back to his locker. Haven't had a smooth comeback since. My name's Chris and I used that exact comeback once. Of course, I was never successfully bullied. The one time a kid tried bullying me in middle school, I taunted him into charging at me, sidestepped, and watched him crash into a wall. That was actually a good comeback for middle school. On a side note, was your dick actually turning rainbow? How many shades of lipstick did his mom own? With proper genital hygiene this shouldn't be occurring. Hindu-guru, do you wash regularly? My stepdad was having a Christmas dinner party a few years back for the law firm at the house. One of my stepdad's friends had just been talking shit all night, little comments here and there about me. You could call it teasing. At first I brushed it off because he was drunk, but it got to me after a while. Anyway, we were all eating at the table and he's sitting across from me. His date is at the end of the table, to the right of me. Everyone was talking, and somehow the conversation steered towards me about to make it a long-distance thing with my girl, because I was moving for college. So the dude starts talking shit, saying something along the lines of, "You're so young to be pussy whipped. When I was your age I had all sorts of fun, but now I'm all blah blah," and it was almost awkward. Then the date gently grabs his bicep and says, "It's okay. I like my men how I like my wine, and me without skipping a beat you like them extra fruity." The whole dinner table, like 15 of us, just started laughing hysterically. The guy got mad. He was like, "Why would you call me that?" And I sarcastically said, "I dunno. Why would I call you that?" The dude was very eccentric and a bit flamboyant, so it just bothered him, I guess. So he demanded I answered him, and I was like, "Chill out, man." So he got more upset and demanded I answer him or else. So I stood up and was like, "Or else what?" He stands up and I fake punch his ass. He totally flinched, so my stepdad starts laughing, tells him to calm down before he gets his panties all up in a bunch. Dude stormed off outside. He was totally embarrassed. They still make fun of him to this day how he got punked by a high school kid. The truth is I'm usually pretty quick on my feet, but I at least think what I'm going to say. This one just spat out my mouth. I didn't even realize I said it. It's like that's what she said, I just say it after anything naturally. It just so happened that it was a perfect setup to what seems to be a sensitive subject for that dude. Every time I think about it, all I see is success baby in my head. Sounds like he might be struggling coming to terms with his closet homosexuality. I was at a bar shortly after reading all about pickup artists and their games at how to unlock panties and gain vaginas. A greasy Jersey Shore type dude with a backwards hat and a pop sequined collar shows up, sits 2 inches away from me, and asks, "Hey, me and my buddy are settling an argument. Who lies more, men or women?" I recognized it immediately as a pickup artist canned line, and without missing a beat said something like dudes who lie to themselves by thinking that using canned lines from pickup books will attract sex. The guy sat there dumbfounded, and said that wasn't a line. No joke. And then touched my shoulder in the textbook Kino bullshit I had just read about. I felt bad about being a jerk to him, so I pointed him to the nearby attractive cougar who was sitting ferociously in the corner with a brutally olive spiked martini, ready to pounce on any live prey who wandered past. I said something like, "If you want to get laid, that lady over there is hungry, but everyone is scared of her. Go and talk to her." Again, dumbfounded, he blinked a few times, said thanks, and wandered over to the beautiful, salacious cougar. They departed shortly after. I did this all while drunk, and am not nearly this smooth in real life. Goddammit. TLDR pickup artist used a line on me. I insulted him and sent him to a cougar den where he was presumably eaten alive. I had this lime green button-up shirt in college, and it was just kinda bright and attention-grabbing. Whenever I wore it, girls would tell me about how much they love it and how good I looked in it. One night I was out with my roommate's girlfriend and some of her friends, and this short jackass who felt the need to prove himself said, "Hey, nice gay green shirt." My roommate's GF, who was fucking hilarious and gorgeous, replied right on beat, "That shirt makes me want to suck his dick." Then her friend I had never met said, "Me too." They didn't actually want to, but it was awesome and he shut the hell up. The first time my dad left bruises on me, hitting me and holding me down by my neck to keep me from fighting back. He made some comments similar to, "Apparently I'm going to have to limit your visitation rights with your mother." He thought she was the reason for my recent argument with his bitch of a girlfriend at the time. I looked him dead in the eye, tears streaming down my face, and said, "No, Dad's name. There is only one thing that is apparent here, and it is most certainly not you." I was 14. This wasn't particularly brilliant, but it happened recently enough that I can still remember it as I sit here on my ratty futon on a Friday night, drinking and red-eyeing. I was walking my dog in the middle of a really narrow, almost empty sidewalk. I saw an elderly lady approaching me, so I started to get off to the side to let her pass. As we got closer to each other, she scowled at me and said, "Excuse me, where are you going?" "Just to the park over there." "Why do you ask?" "Well, you need to stay the hell on the right when you're walking." It was a beautiful, perfect day, but all she could focus on was the fact that I was walking in a way that was not totally to her liking. I looked at her with the biggest shit-eating grin I could muster, and cooed, "You're so old and angry," and I walked off. Had about 13 shots of tequila at my mother's birthday party. A man that was interested in her showed up. He was the stereotypical redneck, very narrow-minded, conservative Republican, judgmental, stubbornly and willfully ignorant, falsely quoted the Bible, etc. Anyway, he made the mistake of talking to me. He kept boasting about how he's a proud redneck, but tried to tell me that there were classy rednecks and trashy breeds. My response was, "Oh, I wonder what's the difference between the two. Do the classy rednecks frame their Confederate flags instead of using them as cartons?" It was a fantastic night. I'm normally a very polite girl. I'm part redneck myself and have plenty of friends who are serious rednecks. To me, someone claiming to be a classy redneck and looking down on other trashy rednecks is a piece of shit. It's essentially saying, "Yeah, I'm a hardworking, rugged country boy, but don't worry, I'm not one of them poor ones who live in old trailers." It's one thing to say I'm a bit of a redneck, but I'm not a racist. I find myself saying that fairly often. but to proudly claim a label that applies to a lower or lower middle class group, and then put down other members of that group who are trashy is despicable. I was playing in a championship soccer game a couple years ago and my team had to play with only 7 players because the other team wouldn't let us call anyone up for the game. There was a lot of animosity between both teams cause there had been a couple fights earlier in the season, so we went into the game kind of being the underdog because we were playing short-handed. We basically played our asses off and absolutely took it to this team. The other team knew that they were probably going to lose, so they were getting really pissed off. Anyways, we scored a goal to make it like 4-1, and they thought it was offside and the goalie was yelling and said whatever, they probably fucked the ref last night. As soon as the last word left his mouth I immediately said yeah, and he squeals like your mom does. He looked absolutely shocked that I had said that so quickly and he couldn't even reply. He just walked to his net, head down. My parents were at the game and both my dad and stepdad started laughing loudly and clapping saying that's my boy, great feeling. Once whilst happily playing CS, some guy who was getting more than a little stomped on by me said, "Go suck a dick, fag." He apparently did not realize that I was female, so I immediately responded without even thinking, "Go lick a cunt, like." Everyone laughed, including him. He wasn't such a bad guy after all, and good times ensued. I didn't really realize until shortly afterwards the full irony of what I said, but of course I played it off like I'm really that witty. All in all, a win. Not quite a comeback, but when I was a senior in high school our football stadium was renovated and a jumbotron was added to one end zone. We were one of the only high schools in the state to have one. I went to what everyone thought of as the rich high school, so friends and acquaintances from rivaling high schools around the city would chide us about the jumbotron to no end. Fast forward to basketball season and an away game across town at a fairly big basketball complex that acted as home court for 3 or 4 schools in the city. Big rivalry game, packed house, and my school is destroying the other team. After one particularly flashy fast break and dunk, the entire arena went oddly silent after we finished cheering for our team and I shouted, "I wanna see that again, where's your jumbotron?" It was met with lots of angry oohs and a smattering of boos from the other side of the arena, as well as a stern look from one of our vice principals that eventually cracked into a smile and full-blown laughter. A few years ago I was working at an eye doctor's place that sold glasses and contacts. We had some crazy deals going on at the time, and the lab was weeks behind and we were constantly fucking up people's glasses and just flat out forgetting to process certain orders. Well, one stressful evening nearing close, this long-haired Vietnam vet walks in and asks for his glasses. After searching for a half hour or so to no avail, one of the newer employees asks me to talk to him. I ask his name and she says it's Mr. Brintman or something similar, so I walk over there and say, "Mr. Brintman, I apologize but we haven't yet processed your glasses," and before I could finish he cuts me off and goes, "No, not Brintman. My name is Grintman, as in grant me a wish man, and find my goddamn glasses." I froze for like 15 seconds or so, just blinking at this guy in disbelief before walking back in the lab and demanding that his glasses be processed immediately. I told the lab guys about how hard I got burned in. They had his glasses ready in 20 minutes. The LDR, a Vietnam vet, used his own name in an off-the-cuff comeback that rocked my socks off. I was a store manager at electronics boutique a long time ago, and a customer brings us a controller that a dog had chewed through the cord. He bought it the previous day, and he wanted his money back. I wouldn't do it, and my employee looks at him and said, "We can't refund this. You didn't buy a wireless controller." This guy is swearing out loud about us and it's during a really busy time. He threw the controller at my employee, and I tell him to leave. He gets right up in front of my face and said, "Fuck you." I looked him in the eyes and replied, "Fuck me? No, fuck you. Get the fuck out of my store." He looked stunned and left. The LDR, I was a store manager who told off a customer, and I won. This kind of thing drives me crazy. Upvote for a good comeback. I always want to tell people in this situation, look, I don't care how badly you want to fuck me, you can't afford it. Take a picture and go jack off outside. I was on a crowded bus with my friend one time, when we were confronted by a girl from our high school. She was drunk and began to go off about how my friend had treated her horribly in high school because she used to be fat. She had recently lost a lot of weight and was clearly proud of it because she then went on to say so that the whole bus heard her. Well, look at me now, what do you have to say about me now? To which my friend just replied, I guess elephants never forget. The entire bus lost it. Her face was priceless. So she tormented some girl in high school to the point of permanently traumatizing her. Then instead of exhibiting some mature humility during this encounter, she fat-shamed her yet again. Cool story, I guess. I don't have any of my own, but I can tell you a couple that I heard other people make. 1. Don and Vern were two co-workers, both nearing retirement age, who liked to tease each other about getting old. One day Vern was walking around the office with his fly open, until Don pointed it out to him, and then he zipped up. Vern quipped, well, you know what they say, it pays to advertise. Don answered, what are you advertising? A going out of business sale. 2. John and Artie were two physics students. John had spent a lot of time setting up an experiment, which then went wrong somehow. John was moaning, why does this always happen to me? Maybe it's because you're stupid, said Artie. Artie always tried to make some wise-ass remark, although he usually wasn't very clever. John was used to this. He weakly protested, Artie, that was a rhetorical question. It doesn't require an answer. Artie replied, well, that was a rhetorical answer. It doesn't require a question.